The old rocking chair creaked softly as grandmother swayed back and forth, her hands resting gently in her lap. The fire in the hearth crackled, sending flickering shadows dancing across the wooden walls of the little cottage. Outside, the wind howled through the trees, but inside, everything was warm and safe. 5-year-old Laura sat cross-legged on the floor, her golden curls glowing in the firelight. Her little brother, Liam, snuggled beside her, his tiny hands clutching a worn cloth doll. His eyelids drooped, but he fought to stay awake. Grandmother's stories were too precious to miss. "Grandmother," Laura asked, her big blue eyes filled with wonder, "why is the world sometimes so sad?" Grandmother's face softened into a gentle smile as she reached for the old leather-bound book resting on the table beside her. She ran her fingers over its worn cover and opened it carefully. "That, my dear, is a story as old as time," she said, her voice warm and full of wisdom. "A story of a beautiful beginning and a heartbreaking choice." Liam yawned and nuzzled closer. "A choice," he murmured sleepily. Grandmother nodded. "Long ago, before sadness and pain, before fear and darkness, the world was perfect. It was full of light and joy, and in the very center of that world, there was a garden, so wonderful and full of life that no one has seen anything like it since." Laura leaned forward eagerly. "A garden?" Grandmother smiled. "Yes, the Garden of Eden, a place where the first man and woman, Adam and Eve, lived in perfect peace, a place where they walked and talked with God himself." Liam's eyes fluttered open. "What happened to it?" Grandmother sighed, gazing into the fire. "Ah, my sweet ones, that is the part you must hear. A story of a choice. A story of a great loss, but also a story of a promise." Laura and Liam exchanged glances, their little hands gripping each other's tightly. "Tell us, Grandmother," Laura pleaded. "Tell us the story of the fall." Grandmother turned the page in the ancient book and began the tale. "When God created the world, everything was good. He made a beautiful garden called Eden, filled with tall trees, colorful flowers, and animals of every kind. In the middle of the garden stood 2 special trees, the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. God placed Adam and Eve in the garden and told them they could eat from any tree, except one. 'You must not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil,' God warned, 'for if you do, you will surely die.' For a while, everything was perfect. Adam and Eve lived happily, caring for the garden, walking with God, and enjoying the beauty around them. But one day, a clever serpent slithered up to Eve. This was no ordinary snake. It was being used by the enemy of God. The serpent spoke. 'Did God really say you must not eat from any tree in the garden?' Eve frowned. 'We may eat from any tree except the one in the middle. If we eat from it or even touch it, we will die.' The serpent chuckled. 'You won't die. God knows that if you eat it, your eyes will be opened. You'll become like him, knowing good and evil.' Eve looked at the tree. The fruit looked so delicious, and she wanted to be wise. Slowly, she reached out, picked the fruit, and took a bite. Then she handed some to Adam, and he ate it too. Suddenly, everything changed. Adam and Eve felt something they had never felt before: shame. They realized they were naked, so they quickly made clothes from fig leaves. When they heard God walking in the garden, they hid. 'Adam, where are you?' God called. Adam stepped out slowly. 'We heard you and hid because we were afraid.' God's voice was filled with sadness. 'Did you eat from the tree I commanded you not to eat from?' Adam pointed at Eve. 'She gave me the fruit.' Eve looked down. 'The serpent tricked me.' God spoke first to the serpent. 'Because you have done this, you will crawl on your belly and eat dust all your life. One day, a child from Eve's family will crush your head.' Then God turned to Adam and Eve. 'Because you disobeyed, life will now be hard. You will have to work for your food, and one day you will return to the dust from which you came." But even in his punishment, God showed kindness. He made clothes for Adam and Eve to keep them warm. Then he sent them out of the garden so they wouldn't eat from the tree of life and live forever in their sin. Though Adam and Eve had to leave Eden, God had a plan. He promised that one day he would send a Savior to make things right again. And so, even though the garden was lost, hope was not gone. For God's love never fails. As grandmother finished, the fire crackled softly, filling the room with warmth. Laura and Liam sat quietly, their little hands still clasped together. Laura whispered, "But God promised to fix it, right?" Grandmother smiled. "Yes, my dear, and he kept that promise. A long time later, he sent his son Jesus to bring us back to him." Liam yawned and rested his head on Laura's shoulder. "That's a good story." Grandmother chuckled and kissed the tops of their heads. "Yes, little ones, the best story of all." As the fire flickered and the wind whispered outside, Laura and Liam drifted to sleep, wrapped in the warmth of their grandmother's love and the promise of a never-ending hope. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss out on our future content. And if you haven't seen our previous episodes in the Book of Genesis playlist, be sure to check it out. There's a link in the description. See you in the next video.